So prior to STEM returners, I had, like you said, a career in recruitment, and I saw a huge amount of people who found it essentially impossible to return through standard channels. And being in recruitment, I was almost part of the problem. My problem was I was in a director level role at a very good company, and the idea of giving that up to try this harebrained idea just seemed ridiculous. And the only reason I did it is because I had just had Leo, and I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be, and I couldn't have the flexibility in the role that I was in. So we started in 2017, and we've got about 23,000 people who are registered now and looking for an opportunity to return. And certainly not just women. That's an absolute imperative for us. Although we provide a returners opportunity, this is about, or it should be about, returning people permanently. We definitely get a lot of emotion, and all of those 620 people that have returned, it's genuinely been life-changing for every single one of them. Every single one has had so many barriers and had a real reason that they were struggling, and it's just made such a difference to their lives. Favourite returner story is a lady. She'd had a 5-year career break from nuclear physicist, really niche skill set. And she was living in a women's refuge at the time because she'd fled domestic abuse. And we placed her at an organisation. She did really well, and she was promoted again. And she phoned us recently to say, I had to tell you, I've bought a flat on my own for the first time, and it's because you and that company gave me the chance.
Every leader has a story to tell, and the Safe Leader podcast uncovers the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. Join me, your host, Mark McBride-Wright, as we hear from business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs, and agents of change as they share their journeys of innovation, resilience, and transformation. Together, we explore how they embrace the principles of safe leadership, sharing, acting, feeling, and empowering to create safer, more inclusive environments for everyone. Hello, welcome to the next episode of the Safe Leader podcast. I'm your host, Mark McBride-Wright, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Natalie Desty, who is the founder of STEM Returners, an award-winning initiative that creates supported routes back into STEM careers for professionals returning after a career break. Driven by a mission to tackle inequality in engineering, Natalie has reshaped how employers view career gaps, unlocking a powerful, experienced, and often overlooked talent pool. Her work directly challenges structural barriers to inclusion, creating paid placement programs that combine real-world experience with coaching, mentoring, and long-term opportunities. Natalie's career began in technical recruitment, evolving into sector-wide advocacy for diversity, equity, and belonging, particularly in the defence and maritime industries. In 2024, she was named winner of the Women in Defence Equity of Opportunity Award, recognising her tireless efforts to improve access and equity across STEM. Natalie continues to lead national conversations about the future of inclusive engineering workforces. Natalie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you and I, we founded our businesses at the same time, I think.
We did, yeah.
We did, yes. I remember we met in coffee shops in Chinham, in Basingstoke, with our big
ideas.
Yeah, with our big ideas. I can't remember if our kids were with us at the time. I was probably pushing an upper baby pram, I got my in-laws to babysit, didn't I?
To babysit, and I think mine was probably at nursery at that point.
Yeah, yeah. We were squeezing it in the in the hours. So for our listeners then, what first inspired you to create a platform that would help returners back to STEM?
So prior to STEM returners, I had, like you said, a career in recruitment, and I saw a huge amount of people who found it essentially impossible to return through standard channels. And being in recruitment, I was almost part of the problem. I'd see these people trying to apply for positions, and simply because they had a career break, in compared to somebody without one, they were essentially filtered out at those early stages. And then around the same time, I went to a conference, Women's Engineering Society, and one of the speakers said there are 40,000 people, 40,000 women who have left STEM and struggling to return. So it was something I was thinking about for a long time. And I was lucky enough to be involved in a working group, an industry working group. And this is where, I guess, where we started in maritime and defence, essentially got an opportunity to pilot it. So I piloted a returners program through that kind of working group, proved the concept, and then thought this is a real passion project for me. So I'm going to try and take it wider.
Amazing. So you heard at a conference a potential talent pool. Well, it's not a potential; it is a talent pool that's out there. 40,000 women. How receptive do you find then the audience is? Is it are people easy to find to build your talent pool?
Well, so we started in 2017 and we've got about 23,000 people who are registered now and looking for an opportunity to return. And certainly not just women. We did some work with the Government Equalities Hub that suggested there were 75,000 people who had left STEM. So the number, I guess, don't know what the real number is, but there's a lot of people that, even though STEM industries are really struggling to recruit, there's a huge amount of people that are kind of outside of those standard recruitment channels. So the number is big, but often returners don't know that there's an opportunity to return, and we tend to find returners find out about us through kind of our charity partner organisations that we work with. They might have found out about us through school newsletters, through word of mouth. But I think often returners don't realise there's the opportunity to return, and they usually have tried really hard to return initially, been unsuccessful, and then they're working in other industries or doing other things. So they're not applying on job boards. They're not usually on LinkedIn. They're usually outside of the industry, and we're trying to entice them back.
But you've had to be creative then in your outreach channels and your recruitment channels to get. What about thinking back to us both being parents, and when you're living the early years life, of when you're in parent networks and like NCT groups and things like that, the groups that you might join when you have your first kid to learn what it's like being a parent. How do you find do you track any statistics on likelihood of leaving the workforce after one has had one's first child, for example? And is there is there a way that you can get into those audiences to help stop that mindset creep, perhaps?
Yes, career break reasons are really, really varied. Everything from choice. Some people choose to take a career break. Obviously you've got physical health, mental health, but the number one reason is always going to be care. But interestingly, it's broadly split between maternity and elder care. And this is why there are a lot of women coming back from career breaks, because often they are taking the maternity childcare, but they're also taking the elder care piece. So often you might find that you have people taking 2-3 career breaks, largely unplanned through the life of their career. So it's very piecemeal about where we'd kind of find returners. Yes, NCT groups. Yes, lots of different online forums that might look at parents or provide support to parents, but it's almost individuals in quite large forums that we're trying to attract. So the school networks piece has actually been really successful, because we usually find that returners in some way are linked to a local school. So if we're running a returners program in, say, Cambridge, we'll try and get all of the local schools in Cambridge to put that in their newsletter, because a returner is usually, if they're not a parent, then they're often a family member or linked to their local school. And it's very much a local campaign. So if we're running a program for an organisation, as I said, in Cambridge, it's a lot of local outreach, because usually returners, of course, are often as well tied to the area that they're looking to return to.
And that's important anyway, isn't it? Because your program ultimately wants to lead to some permanent role.
That's an absolute imperative for us. So we, although we provide a returners opportunity, this is about, or it should be about, returning people permanently. I'm not saying work experience isn't valuable, absolutely is, but we want to return people kind of permanently. And that's why we always insist with organisations that, yes, it's a returners programme, but there has to be that opportunity of a permanent position. Of course, it has to work for the employer and it has to work for the returner too, who might also be testing, going back to work after quite a long period of time out, or they might be going back to work, testing actually the hours they can commit to because they have commitments outside of work. So, but there always has to be the opportunity. And we've returned just over 620 people now. And 96% of those have gone on to secure a permanent role. So we're really proud of that, and we really want to stick to that because we don't want to be providing experience.
That's incredible. Experience. That's incredible. That's what I mean, I read statistics about the number of women leaving the industry is still high. Mm-hmm. The number of people, the number of Engineering UK data, most recent one, shows that women in that, I think it's either 34 or 44, I can't remember the lower age band, I think it's 34 to 54 age band are the highest rate that are leaving the sector. Mm-hmm. So are you finding it's like a leaky bucket? You're doing all this work to like get people back in or bring in people back, but we're also like hemorrhaging talent,
still losing them,
and still losing them. So we're not really doing like a net gain.
It's interesting because culture's changed significantly. And culture within kind of engineering, it is a traditional sector. And certain, it's not just women, lots of different people struggle to thrive in some environments. I'd say it's really changed. I've been working within the engineering kind of recruitment space for 17, 18 years. I've seen a real change in culture and attitudes and expectations. Things like COVID obviously changed things as well with regards to home working. Home working just, it wasn't a thing, didn't exist, 5 years ago. But interestingly, we're still seeing people leave, and it tends to be those people that require something beyond flexible working, actually need to step away, take a period of time out. And it is often related to maternity, but that elder care piece as well. As I said, it's getting people, not just women, but predominantly women still, but it's getting them at that later career stage, and then they're struggling to come back, because we do research every year to see almost what the biggest barrier is to returners this year. And age comes out so strongly. So when people are taking career breaks later, they're finding it even more difficult to get back in.
There's some ageism kicking into and people are living longer. We're in the sandwich generation where we're looking after our young ones, maybe even grandkids as well. Mm-hmm. But then there's also that upward care of parents or family members, other members of the family, or friends. And that's all just takes a hit. On your and sometimes juggling all that is just too much. So you need that break. You need that stopgap. And then when
I guess you do get you get periods of leave, obviously, for maternity or paternity or adoption, and often kind of, it depends on the policy of the organisation. Some organisations have incredibly good sick leave, but it's not equitable for everybody, is it? And not everybody gets the kind of same experience and also the same acceptance and support, I think, at organisations. And there are certainly a lot of people that we've spoken to who have returned who felt like they had to take a break. It wasn't a choice. It was something that they had to do to essentially be able to cope with the scenario that was going on outside of work.
Yeah. No, I get that. I imagine you experience a lot of there's a lot of emotion that gets shared from returners as they start to see that there is a potential pathway back for them to return. And so how do you handle that? Do people tend to get excited about it? Do people tend to get quite emotional because it's quite an overwhelming experience, like they've checked out of something mentally, and then all of a sudden it's, hey, actually there is a place for you here. We want you back.
Yeah, we definitely get a lot of emotion, and of all of those 620 people that have returned, it's genuinely been life-changing for every single one of them.
Yeah.
Every single one has had so many barriers and had a real reason that that they were struggling, and it's just made such a difference to their lives. And I think that's what really helps it land with an organization, because the hiring managers involved, the people that gave them the opportunity in the first place, they've all genuinely transformed someone's life or opportunity. So yeah, it's really addictive from that. You really want to help people who have just faced such barriers that honestly, let's be honest, shouldn't be there, just to return to their career that they have the experience, skills and qualifications for. So yeah, we do get a lot of emotion. I'd say tears is the common one. Relief. A lot of people they want to return because they want to utilize their skills and experience, but they need to, financially, people need to return to work. So yeah, a lot of relief. And then just we really have to work on people's confidence, because they've been so kind of battered by the system, by the no's, by even if they manage to get an interview, then they don't interview as well as other people because confidence has been impacted. So we really have to pick people up, and that 12-week kind of program that people initially start on is around that confidence to return to work. And you should be there. You have the skills and experience. It's just the inequality is that lack of equitable opportunity. That means that your break, in comparison to somebody without one, just means you don't get that initial opportunity. They have the skills and experience, and it's kind of helping them remember that. And then when we can, because a lot of returners are mid-career, so they've had quite a lengthy career, and we've placed returners at director level quite often. Often they then become mentors for us, and then they help our next generation of returners coming through, because they really understand and empathize what it's like to be a returner. And returners have all different types of barriers. You might have a returner. Our longest ever returner was 22 years that they'd had a break. Wow. So them coming back into an engineering environment, everything was different. Teams, they'd never used Teams. All of the tech was different. So yeah, it's really interesting. Sometimes you don't necessarily know what you're going to be supporting somebody with.
We always have a difficulty in getting people to put themselves forward for the Engineering Returner of the Year category at the Engineering Talent Awards. And, of course, I created that category to help platform the people coming through STEM returners. And it's always, I would say it's frustrating when, there's all 620 people that would be eligible in scope going through. But when we've spoken about it before, or when I'm sending you that sort of, month before the deadline message being like, Natalie, I need you to promote this, which happens every year. It's you've said before, it's just that confidence that putting themselves forward. Do you think that the experience that they have to go through leaves a sort of permanent dent in their confidence, maybe, or
certainly for a long time? It really impacts returners. That I don't know how many. Often a returner would have applied for over 100 vacancies, 100 positions. I mean, hearing no, or usually not even no, you hear nothing.
Busted.
100 times is really going to impact you. Attending interviews, without that equitable opportunity, and being unsuccessful, it really starts to have an impact over time. Having to kind of justify, the reason you've had a career break, and is it a reason that the hiring manager accepts. People take, as I said, career breaks for all different reasons. It's not just returning parents. There's loads of reasons. None of us are immune to the curveballs of life that mean we might need to take a break. Relocation, as something you've recently been through, is another big reason. So yes, it does impact. But I'd say, sometimes people aren't good at putting themselves for awards anyway. I know women are terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. I remember, you mentioned the Equity of Opportunity Award in Defence. I would never have put myself forward for that. Thankfully, someone else did, and I was so grateful. I wouldn't have done it, and I should, and I know I should. But I really understand that. And with returners, we've got 23,000. This should be such an easy, I've got a new program, should be such an easy job. I should put it out in a newsletter and get inundated with applications. They don't apply. They know they're suitable. We have to physically phone them and say, you're suitable for this. Let's get your details forward. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a funny thing with awards. I think a lot of people aren't good at putting themselves forward. And I think if you've been through a difficult experience, when we work with the returners, so sometimes I might get an opportunity to go on the radio or might get to do a presentation, and then I work with them a little bit. Suddenly they're a bit more forthcoming in sharing their experience. The other thing is, though, I think sometimes people don't necessarily want to be seen as a returner. So they want to be back at their job, but they almost want it to be under the radar, because sometimes we'll say to somebody, can you do us a case study? And it's almost like, I don't really want, I want
that label.
Exactly. I don't. So I think that plays into it as well.
Yeah. It's that age-old not wanting to be known for insert label X, but then equally, if people don't embrace that element of their identity or wear that badge with honor, then you're never going to cultivate more learning opportunities for others you've got to see it to be it,
Absolutely.
You've got to hear it to be it, I guess, with being a returner, because it's not something you physically see about someone. You have to hear their story and then build that empathy with it, and then think, that's me. I see me in that person, and then you get the ripple effect of more people coming out to apply then for returner programs, because they think, oh yeah, that's my history, that maybe I could benefit from and because STEM careers are usually on average higher paying, they're well paid roles, so it's also life-changing in the sense that people could transition from lower paid roles in other sectors into higher paid roles that they're suitably qualified and experienced for. It's just this gap that they've got. So zooming out then and thinking about recruitment in general, if we go back, you said you've been working in recruitment for 17, 18 odd years. Did if you went back and met the young Natalie now, like did she always want to go into recruitment? Was that your calling? How did you what did you want to be when you were older? And are you doing now what you thought you would be doing?
I'm not sure anyone plans to go into recruitment. And actually it's when I started STEM Returners, that was really important for me to set myself up as not a recruiter, because I kind of saw the barriers. So we set ourselves up as a consultancy, or kind of ED&I consultancy, really. What did I want to do when I was younger? I want to be a vet. I love animals, still do. Got a horse, 13 chickens, a dog. So yeah, still love animals.
13 chickens.
13 chickens, all rescues.
How many eggs do you get in your household?
Well,
do they make eggs?
They're all ex-caged girls, so they're all retired. But yeah, we probably get out of the 13, probably half, six a day. So
okay.
yeah. So yeah, but it's it's nice. They have a good little life down there. So yeah, I'd want to be a vet. And then in recruitment, like, I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the industry. So I was in maritime and defence, and I really enjoyed working in the industry I was working, and I enjoyed helping people, forge their careers. After working in engineering, I'd actually quite like to have been an engineer, but that was something I did not hear about at school. At all. Wouldn't have been something I'd heard of, thought of. I liked history. And actually, I did international relations and politics at university. So I clearly didn't know what I was, planning to do. And then I fell into recruitment. But the reason I started STEM Returners is I really wanted to do something that I felt proud of and that I thought made a difference. And also, I wanted to be able to challenge industry. And that is what I didn't like as a recruiter. I felt like I had to be largely subservient to the client, and what do you want, and I'll go and find that or headhunt that person for you. I love being able to challenge now. I love being able to question and say, do you really need that background? Do you really need that experience? And I love it when somebody says, oh, they're not, just not quite right. And it's like, yeah, good. That's exactly what we're doing here. This is saying yes to somebody you normally say no to. So yeah, I enjoy being a bit of a pain now, I guess.
How and so for people listening who might be thinking about entrepreneurship as because that's what you are as well. You're an entrepreneur running your own enterprise. How have you found entrepreneurship? What's been the journey of STEM Returners since it was that idea or the pilot that you got the opportunity to do in the maritime sector? Like, how have you grown it, contracted it, grown it? What's been the sort of journey till now, and what are you thinking for the future?
Yeah, it's been so it's been since 2017, so we're in year 8. It started off really well. It was having that initial pilot and that opportunity, particularly with 2 really big organizations, was fantastic. Gave me the confidence and gave me the opportunity to see that my idea worked. So that was genuinely invaluable. My problem was I was in a director level role at a very good company, and the idea of giving that up to try this harebrained idea just seemed ridiculous. I mean, when is ever the right time? We've all, got mortgages, commitments, and looking back, it was crazy. And the only reason I did it is because I had just had Leo. And so business is 9, Leo's 9. So I just had
exactly.
Leo, and I couldn't have the flexibility. I couldn't be the mum that I wanted to be, and I couldn't have the flexibility to in the role that I was in. So I guess I was almost one of those returners that felt pushed and forced. I had a really good role, and I was almost pushed to leave because I couldn't have the kind of work-life balance that I wanted. And obviously this was pre-COVID, and flexibility has improved quite a lot, even in recruitment. So I didn't feel, I guess the risk was lessened because I was like, I can't do that. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But it was crazy because I had a mortgage and a new baby and nursery fees, and this was just a made up idea. Looking back, I'm amazed I was ever brave enough, because I'm not the world's, I'm very impulsive. I'm do it now type of person, but I'm not the world's biggest risk taker. Anyway, obviously operating within defence, those 2 organisations ran a pilot. It was successful. They ran it again. And it kind of naturally scaled really from there, and other organisations started seeing what we were doing. I guess you grow with a bit more confidence. We've hit a few milestones, hitting 250 returners and 500 returners has given me the push and the confidence. But I will still second guess this because I'm can be a little bit negative. Second guess, does this work? Is there a place for it? I still have all of those worries and all of those panics. And, I always think when I get to a milestone, right, stop questioning this now. This is working. My next one will be 1,000 returners.
1,000, yeah.
1,000 is the next milestone. I think we've really grown in confidence around challenging industry and actually saying, do you know what, these barriers aren't okay. We research every year to understand what those barriers are. As I said, they change. It's like every year, a different group of people is more adversely impacted. Obviously, government policy changes, different sentiments, from across the pond, in terms of the importance and value of ED&I. And this is an ED&I initiative, but it's also just about bringing skilled professionals back. It just so happens to be in the kind of ED&I space because of the backgrounds of people who take breaks, tend to be much more diverse. But it's actually a returners program, for everybody. What's next? I think, well, definitely get to that 1,000 milestone. I want to look at taking it a little bit wider across different industries, SMEs. We've returned 626 people, but just our database is 23,000. There's so many more returners than there are opportunities. Want to get a lot more involved in sectors like nuclear. Nuclear is perfect for us. It's about bringing people in with different skills and experience. It's about transferring. So just really grow it until, the idea, hopefully, which will be in a position where I don't need to work, will be that returner programs aren't necessary. A career break is just viewed as normal, something that any one of us might take, through our normal career. So although that will be talking myself out of a job, that's the end goal.
I wouldn't be surprised if you get approached for an acquisition, by I don't know, some recruitment company or talent consultancy, or is that something that
it's such a funny
consider?
thing, that though, because it's like, I guess it would depend on the organization, because the genuine barriers that exist is the kind of the way organizations recruit. It's recruiting almost those kind of unicorn candidates, job specs, the kind of the best person for the role, but the best person for the role based on my experience, my degree, where the kind of background that I have. So I often really try and keep us a bit of an arm's length of and we work with recruiters, because often, large organizations have like a master vendor. So we often work with and support recruiters. I don't know if there's a natural kind of space with recruitment and returners. They just seem to be quite diametrically opposed. If you think recruitment is finding an organization's view of the best 3 candidate, almost that headhunting piece. Returners, we're asking them to say yes to somebody they normally say no to. So
type of organization to help you take STEM returners to the next level, if that was, as an entrepreneur, an avenue you wanted to explore, because it's that balance, isn't it, between, is it steady growth and then we reinvest the profits that we make and therefore bootstrap, so that's called bootstrapping, or so do you grow sustainably and slowly, or do you then take investment to help unlock a faster rate of growth, but then that investment could come through without having to dilute one's shares of what we've created, or it does mean actually giving up equity of your enterprise, your business. And I don't know, it's a difficult one. We were approached for an acquisition once, and I explored it with solicitors and stuff for a bit, but in the end I decided to just keep my business as was, because I personally didn't want to, like, the whole intention for why I created Equal Engineers was to properly enact change. Well, I mean, I like to think that I've got a strong view and the right direction on how we ought to do things to make change, believing in myself so much that I still want to maintain that direction, and that decision. Otherwise, I've just sort of like, well, hang on, I created a business to not be beholden to certain people and, accountable to certain people. I created it for myself, to help make change in the world. Any other type of stakeholder, like, I don't know, does it threaten that? Does it change that? But then I also realize there's a finite amount of bootstrapping you can do, because if you're reinvesting
it's
profits
so
that you make,
tiring.
you've got to deliver the work that you've won to then,
and then
so
bring
actually
in...
if you just got a chunk of money that you could then focus on scaling and getting the right people and doing so, I don't know.
No, I
It's
don't. We did manage to so we did get investment last year with an
fabulous.
organisation that kind of was very like-minded, shared our values, and we are allowed, we continue to operate kind of as we are.
That's good.
But it's nice to feel, I guess, that there's another organisation that believes in us, a company called Intermarine. They believe in what we do. And they are there to support us. So that's definitely given us. So we're still kind of growing quite organically. We're not bringing somebody in until we've got the work to support it. And that's what I really struggled with before. It's like, we need someone. Well, we can't afford it until this level of work's delivered. Yeah, but we can't deliver that level of work because we need somebody. And that's just constant, isn't it? It's like we've won something brilliant, but we're not, we can't invest until X point, and that impacts our being able to deliver. So yeah, I think we've got that balance now.
Good.
It's quite it was like the end of last year, so it's quite a new relationship, but yeah, so far so good. It's nice to feel a bit safer and almost like I love work. I love being an entrepreneur, but actually it's really nice to have someone to talk to. It can be really lonely.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, that's why I like maintaining a friendship with yourself and Alex Knight over at Stemazing.
Yeah.
We're all kind of tackling different bits of the talent chain, and the connectivity points. So, and I always say that when I go to clients and they're developing a full life cycle strategy or something, and what I always say to companies is that there are so many incredible organizations that own their niche, that know it inside and out, but it really works when a client comes and then, I guess this is like the equivalent of investment. It's like a larger scope of work or contract than one would readily get if we were working solely and directly with the company. But the company has the foresight to recognize the sum of all the parts are greater than working individually one by one. So they convene this sort of, basically, I think some engineering companies should dig deep and co-invest in some projects, some long-term pipeline projects that fund STEMazing, equal engineers and STEM returners working together in the round. And then, me, you, and Alex have already mapped this out, like how role models on the STEMazing programs could be some of the STEM returners. They could go through some of the inspiration training that STEMazing do, which could then help build the confidence of the returners. I just think it. So any employers listening to this, get in touch with Natalie or I. And it's how, I guess, I mean, the question's really to us as well. Like, how do we go to market with a compelling offer? Or I guess I say this from a position where I almost expect people to be joining these dots up and having this foresight, but maybe people and businesses are just so entrenched and in the thick of it in their own world that they never get a chance to come up and think broadly like that.
As well, it's just some of the sizes of the organizations, they are just so vast and so huge that even though I've worked with Babcock and BAE Systems from the very start, and I still work with them now, but in reality, most people at Babcock or BAE have never even heard of us. Don't even know what we do, don't even know that we supply returners into those organizations. And you must find this if you've got a really good relationship with somebody at a company and they leave. It's like, oh my God, starting from scratch. It takes you another 18 months to get back into the same company you worked with 2 months ago. So it's just the scale. And I find, it's interesting. So I'm almost finding my contacts are changing. Usually it's like, it might be HR for us, or it might be ED&I lead. And now actually it's becoming social value that are getting involved in returner programs. So yeah, we need to find that holistic person in organizations that almost brings the three bits that we offer together. So
definitely the hot spot of the moment is absolutely social value. UK Procurement Act changing, requiring organisations to be doing more and doubling down on their commitments to ED&I. It's so strange coming back from living in the States for a year where organisations were like, I was literally having to do a control find on documents to look for the word diversity or inclusion and make sure it's not in there.
You did see that pullback almost immediately.
Oh my God,
then.
Yeah, definitely. Or this nervousness around it, to now be coming back to, clients presenting statistics on slides, or even this morning I applied for like a business accelerator program, and it asked me, am I a women-owned business, an ethnic minority-owned business, or a disabled-owned business, And I was like, it's so nice to see those questions in the application forms, because it means that, positive action is still alive and kicking. You said you want to diversify sectors. So what other sectors do you have in mind? I think you said nuclear being one of them.
Yeah, so we've done quite a lot into nuclear. The reason I'm so involved or excited by nuclear is, of course, 40,000 skills needed by 2030. And it's like, I've got 23,000 of those who could go into nuclear. So yeah, that's the real thing for nuclear. I'd really like to diversify the opportunities for returners, because it's been really successful in defence. So instead of our 600 odd, over 300 have been into UK defence. But that creates less opportunities. Often there's security clearance requirements. It might be UK nationality required. And also they're very engineering focused roles, because that is what companies are struggling to recruit. And they give me the roles that they're struggling to recruit, of course. The easy ones, they do through their other channels. So we get a lot of engineering roles, which is great because we've got a lot of engineering returners, but we've also got science returners. Our tech returners, again, huge group of people. Tech is a really interesting one because there's this kind of even more bias, I guess, around somebody with a break, or the industry moves so quickly, how have they kept their skills up to speed, if they use this new bit of software. So there's a huge amount of tech returners. And less so opportunities. So like our tech returners often going into engineering organizations, I'd like to deal with, just tech companies. And science, there's lots of returners into science. And science, I haven't really, we've done a little bit of returners into science, particularly chemistry. So almost like physics, maths, chemistry, that side of science. I've never seen a biology returner. So some more
physical
of those
sciences then.
Yes.
Rather than biological.
So to create opportunities for returners across STEM, because it's really been picked up by engineering. And I think two key reasons for that: they've got a real diversity problem, as we know, and they're struggling to recruit. So why would they not look at this big talent pool of people with the skills and experience?
I mean, 23,000 people in your database, and 620 is a big number, but as a percentage of 23,000, I'd need a calculator to work it out, but it's like less than 1%, isn't it? It's And do you have that broken down by like region and industry background, like where they had worked? And I'm just thinking, is there a sort of mapping exercise to be done at a sort of national level, looking at key projects that are coming through? We've got the new infrastructure strategy, and I'm not up to speed yet with what the government's called all these different reports and strategies, but Skills England and priority sectors, and you know, I wonder if
I
there's a,
yeah, I think we really need to kind of get on the front foot of it because,
yeah,
if I think about my role is to get the next program. So I'm
yeah,
always speaking to individual organizations. Would you run a program? And pretty much every company we work with once goes on to work with us again, and we have a longer term relationship. But it's almost like I'm so focused on the individual opportunities and the
yeah,
individual organizations. I probably need to take a bit more of that helicopter view and think, right, but when do you get that's the thing, isn't it? You're in there, I'm the
yeah.
one who has
You're
to make
when to get the
sure
time. Yeah, I know,
when
I
do you
know.
get the time. But I think that's really what we need to focus. That's the genuine opportunity to scale, isn't it? To
Yeah,
kind of answer some of those questions, because otherwise I'm dealing with, you know, really fantastic big organizations, but one returner program at a time. And we
yeah, yeah,
are
yeah.
changing the industry one returner at a time. And there's
It's
there's
too
got to be,
granular. It
yeah,
needs to be batch. It needs to
yeah.
be you need to be running like, 10 returner programs a month, like getting
Mm.
launched, around the country, and then have that sort of failure mentality that if something doesn't work out, why doesn't it work out? And then apply those learnings to the next program that launches. And yes, yes. I
You
mean,
know what
I
I need
have,
then? I need some kind of business growth mentor. So if anyone's listening and wants to give me some
yeah.
growth
Well,
advice, because
I, th-
it's
I
such, I
think,
think that's the most difficult thing is scaling. That's
yeah,
by far what I found the most difficult thing to do.
yeah. Yeah, I think I think you and I should meet more often, and then maybe be one another's growth mentors as well. Before I was leaving to go to the US, we had a regionalization strategy for eco engineers, and
Okay.
we had a big map in our office. We'd sectioned up the country into different parts, and then the plan was to go after different regional skills groups
Mm,
basically, and look at what the priority industries were per
mm.
geography, therefore knowing that that's who the dominant employers would be, where the most opportunities would be, um, and then essentially task me and my team to work with networking with those industries, and I always had in my head that then an overlay on that would be your database, with your network, with your distribution of, and then we could see the sort of color density, almost like a red, amber, green of where you had the highest concentration of return. There'd probably be some really interesting data that could be visualized that way, with
Yeah.
overlaying like the Labour government's industrial strategy, the priority sectors. In
Mm.
fact, I think a new tool has been released by the National Infrastructure Commission, or again a new department whose name I can't remember, but it has like all the top infrastructure projects, and what we need linked to them is like the
Mm.
workforce labor demands, the forecasts, and where are their projected gaps. And then the obvious thing to be would be like, okay, well, let's now look at this database over here.
Hmm.
Let's see if Natalie and STEM returners have any welders. Do you have any welders that live in, I don't know, Suffolk, where they're about
Yeah.
to build Sizewell B? Oh, great. Well, there's a big lack of people over there. Right. Let's go and give X, Y, and Z person a call and see if this organization will take them. Um, but it's the BD side that takes
Yeah.
time, and the time between initial call and then signing a contract to run a program. It's just like
Do you know
pulling
that has got
teeth.
so much longer? That's what
Oh,
I've really the change in the market is what I've really noticed. That length of time, the interest is absolutely there. Um, Recruitment freezes, kind of, I guess, a bit of a risk, aversion to risk. Yeah, the length of time to actually, you get off a call, don't you? And you're like, yes, they got it.
yeah.
They're going to do it 6 months later, and
And
9 months later.
you're still
So
chasing it up. Yeah. Or
yeah,
that person's moved on, as you
yeah,
said.
yeah,
As in, ah, yes. Okay. Well, I'm back now. Maybe we can go to Costa and the Chinham,
absolutely. Back to Chinham.
back to Chinham. Right. Quick fire. questions. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
Oh, it's going to sound a bit cheesy because it's a book, but feel the fear and do it anyway. I always really held myself back with imposter syndrome. Probably still do, to be honest. But yeah, feel the fear and do it anyway. Say yes, even if it scares you, and work it out later. Um, is I think what stopped me being stuck in that kind of should I do it, should I not, and just think, yeah, like give it a go. And it doesn't always work out. That's okay.
What's one returner success story that still gives you goosebumps?
Or my favorite returner story is a lady that was working. She'd had a 5-year career break from. I think she had like nuclear physicist, really, really niche skill set. And she was living in a women's refuge at the time because she'd fled domestic abuse. And she'd ended up with a 5-year, obviously unplanned career break. And we placed her at an organization. She did really well, and she was promoted again. And this was one of our early ones. This was about 2018, and she phoned us recently to say, "I had to tell you, I've bought a flat on my own for the first time, and it's because you and that company gave me the chance, 5 years ago." So yeah, honestly, that when I'm having a down day, that's what I remember. And we have those stories, up and down at all of our returners. So it's it matters.
Coffee, tea, or a celebratory G&T?
Would I have a coffee, a tea, or a celebrate?
Yeah.
Always a celebratory G and T. If it's before 12, it will be a tea. And if I have the opportunity for a coffee shop, it will be a latte. So that's rubbish, isn't it? All three.
All three, all three.
Yeah.
What's one thing every inclusive leader should stop doing?
Recruiting in their own image, or just having that bias, like even what's the reason that somebody's had a career break? What's the relevance? Does it matter? What is one thing more important than the other? But yeah, I'd say recruiting in your own image.
What's your personal power song or anthem before a big keynote or media appearance?
I love the way that you think I have big keynotes or media appearances. Lose Yourself, Eminem.
One tool or method you swear by in your coaching or candidate prep?
Sorry, one tool.
One tool or method that you use when you're preparing candidates?
I mean, companies still use the STAR method a lot. So we do a lot around competencies and trying to show people that they have done tons of stuff on their career break and tons of competencies that are completely relevant for the workplace.
Okay. Who's a change maker or role model in STEM that you admire?
I mean, there's lots, isn't there? You, Alex, it's amazing. I come across quite a lot of people, and this is why I love collaborating, come across a lot of people who are genuinely doing something different, who I really admire. So there are lots, but I'm going to go with you two.
Finally, what advice would you give to someone considering a return to work after a long career break?
Do it. Don't second guess your suitability. You have all of the skills, all of the qualifications. You've done the role before. Industry want you back. They need you back. And it is genuinely like riding a bike. As soon as it's not about your skills and capabilities. It's about the barriers that mean that you're not getting seen. But your skills are wanted. So please return.
Brilliant. Well, then, with that note, thank you so much. It's been great. I've really enjoyed this chat. If people do want to get in touch, find out more about STEM returners or reach out to you, how should they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, so please connect with me. Obviously, the STEM Returners website, so all of the current opportunities are on there as well. So if you are looking to return, that's worth a look. But yeah, LinkedIn or the website, be really good to hear from you.
Wonderful. We'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
You have been listening to the Safe Leader podcast, uncovering the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. If you have enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the Safe Leader podcast on your podcast platform of choice and get notified when a new episode goes live. Did you know that we also offer a full transcript on each of our podcast episodes? Check out my website, markmcbride-wright.com. Here, you can also explore the training, coaching, and keynote speaking services I offer. And whilst you're there, why not join the Safe Leader community by subscribing to the Safe Leader Insights mailing list? Thank you for listening, and please come back and join us on a future episode.